Are you sheltering in place, isolated, feeling alone? Well, then you're just like us.
Hit me.
From Studio P in Sausalito, the home of the quarantined hit, it's time for... Succotash Shut-In, the Soundcast Stimulus Package featuring snippets from comedy...
Soundcasts.
And now, here's your host for this episode, Marc Hershon.
Welcome, and a hearty thanks to our trusty, crusty booth announcer, Bill Haywatt. Good to see you, Bill. Bill? Man, that guy is just in and out. Anyway, hi. I'm Marc Hershon, your host for this episode 221 of Succotash Shut-In, the Soundcast Stimulus Package, entitled Guestin' It Up with Pat Kelly and Peter Oldring. More on our special guests in a moment. Hopefully you caught our previous installment, Epi221, Harvestin early fall comedy clips with my alternating co-host Tyson Saner. He featured clips from the Whaley Family Hour, You're Dead to Me, and Two Bears, One Cave with Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer. If you missed it, it's not too late to catch it over at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, the Laughable app, and on our own home site, succotashshow.com. Now, the last time I was on, episode before last, number 219, I played a clip from This Sounds Serious. It's a true crime soundcast spoof of The First Order, now in its third season. And I mentioned that I might be able to get the brains behind that bundle of comedy magnificence on this very show. Well, they've done been got, friend, and I am pleased to tell you that I have Pat Kelly and Peter Oldring waiting in the virtual wings. I'm very excited. We'll get into a lot of the stuff these guys have been doing and making funny since they were in high school. One of the shows they've done that makes me laugh hard is Dexter Guff is Smarter Than You, and you can too. It's a great send-up of motivational business dorks, and Peter Oldring really nailed Dexter out of the gate. Here's one of Dexter Guff's thought shots.
Elevator pitch. We all know what an elevator pitch is. And if we don't, then we better prick up our ears. Because it's one of the most powerful tools any entrepreneur can use. So what is elevator pitching if you don't know? You're on an elevator. You're with your boss or your mentor or someone you want to work with. It could be me. And you want to summarize an idea that you have in about 90 seconds. What happens if you work somewhere where there are not elevators? I mean, it's the modern economy. Some offices, they don't have elevators. They've got a slide or maybe a fire pole. A few years back, I had a meeting at a high-tech firm in Norway. I got into the lobby, and there was just a large glass, cylindrical tower of balls. It was like a ball pit silo. My meeting was on the third floor. I, entered this ball pit silo and just began wriggling and writhing my way up that silo of balls. Took me about an hour. Was late for the meeting. Had a hell of a lot of fun. Very cool. Great core workout, too. Very cool way to get between floors. A ball silo. Camrex in Norway, I love your ball silo. Very cool take on an elevator. Regardless, if there isn't an elevator where you work, then you need to recognize the places in your life that are metaphorical elevators. Personal story. It's an app idea I've had a few months back. Haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, but when I do, it'll be big. I know it will. It's a great idea. I have an idea for a pet sharing app. Now, what's a pet sharing app? Pet sharing app is that perfect opportunity for somebody that doesn't have a pet. For a monthly fee, they are a part of this app, and they can, at random, choose to have a pet for an afternoon. Maybe someone's a parakeet, someone's a collie, someone's Lasso Apso. And for a pet owner, for a fee, you can also be on this app. Maybe you want to break from your frisky beagle for like a week? Get on the app. Share that dog. The app is called Our Hound, and it's a great idea. That's my 90-second pitch. But you know that I've got a 60-second. You know I've got a 15-second. And it might blow your mind to know I've also got something called a 7-second haiku pitch, which is just a handful of very potent words, very quickly, that communicate that idea of Our Hound. Well, it's a good thing I had that in my back pocket. Because a few weeks back, I was on Wilshire Boulevard when who do I see at a red light? Caesar Milan. Driving a Yukon, a couple of very rambunctious dogs in the back bouncing around. Seemed like a nightmare to me. But I said to myself, this is the perfect person to partner with on our hound. I looked at the light. It was red, but I could see for traffic going the other way, they were already on an amber. I only had 7 seconds of time with Caesar. Look over, power down my window, start yelling, Caesar, Caesar, power down, power down. He rolls down the window. He kind of looks like shocked, like, who is this? Maybe he recognized me. I couldn't tell. All happened very quickly. But I seized the moment, and I blasted him with this. Our hound. Pet sharing online. Sharing economy. Capitalize. Pet curious individuals. Monthly subscription. Money. At Dexter Guff. Light turned green. You know I dropped the hammer. Oh yeah. I laid a patch. I laid a patch at that intersection. Did I get anything on Twitter? No. Is there still a chance I will? Yeah. Takes time to unpack all that haiku. But I can tell you this much. I'm just glad that I had that haiku version in my back pocket. And that's what you need. To be ready for whatever metaphorical elevator presents itself in your life. And that is today's thought release.
So there's Peter Oldring, and I'll have him and Pat Kelly in here in a minute. But first, let's hear from one of our longtime sponsors, Henderson's Pants, and their new Fancy Pants for Fops.
Friends, it's no secret that at Henderson's Pants, we don't like to see anyone go without a snappy pair of trousers. From working stiffs on the factory floor to high-powered honchos in their penthouse offices, Henderson's has been cradling their buttocks every step of the way. But what about the fop, the dandy, that urbane gent about town preoccupied with little else than his manners and his clothing? It doesn't matter that effete snobbery went out well over 50 years ago. When the fops went out the door, Henderson's Pants went with them, and we've stayed with them too. You generally won't find Henderson's Fancy Pants for Fops on a casual shopping spree, but if you're a pretentious popinjay, just give your local Henderson's Pants salesperson that snide smirk you've got down to a science, and you'll be shown into our private fitting area in no time flat. You'll be seated comfortably with a brandy in hand and a snoot full of snuff, watching a parade of the latest Fancy Pants parade right by you. With any luck at all, you'll favor us with a fitting, and although we never dare hope to be so lucky, you might even leave the premises with a fresh pair, dare we say two, of Henderson's Fancy Pants for Fops under your arm. Originally designed for syphilitic poets, Renaissance painters, and Beau Brummel. We'd ask you to tell your friends, but we know that you don't actually have any. Fancy Pants for Fops from Henderson's, makers of fine trousers and pantaloons since 1491. Now back to Succotash.
Thank you, Bill Haywatt. Joining me today on Succotash is Pat Kelly and Peter Oldring from Kelly and Kelly Productions. Does that kind of cover where you guys are from to start with?
Yeah, pretty close. I would say that, this is Pat, by the way. Pete and I have a comedic relationship that goes back to when we were in high school, which was just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Very recent
graduates.
Proud to have finally made it.
Yeah, but no, Pete and I have had a comedic partnership for 20 plus years, and sort of primarily always focusing a bit of our material on satire, and we've kind of dabbled in a few different mediums and poked fun at a few different type of media type genres, and then Chris Kelly, who was our producer at CBC. For a show that we did called This Is That. He's in Vancouver as well as I am, and we started a little company, and obviously we always collaborate with Mr. Oldring on everything that is funny, including This Sounds Serious.
Now, Chris Kelly, any relation?
Not related at all.
But strangely related to me. So that's the weird. That's the weird. We are brothers. It's just that I took my wife's name. Now this should be clear for everybody listening. What's happened here?
Perfect. That works out great. Excellent. I think I first became aware of you guys from This Is That. Somebody had passed along recording. I think I may have even featured it on a very early episode of Succotash. But then, Pat, I saw a video that you had done in Vegas. It was like a mock TED Talk.
Yes.
And it just, I shared it around to everybody I could send the link to. And I just loved it. And I think I even used it in a meeting at one point to make a point about sort of the ridiculousness of
thought leadership.
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute. Is there a royalty issue here? How big was the meeting you shared this at?
Well, it was a local, it was like people in my office, but I did charge them $5 a head.
Fantastic.
There may be a royalty.
That video was part of a series of videos that we did for This Is That. I don't know, over the years, we probably did, what would you say, Pete, like 20 of them or so?
Yeah, 30? Something like that.
Yeah.
Every season that we would do. For those that aren't aware of This Is That, it is a satire of public radio. Ultimately, it's Canada's major broadcaster is the CBC, sort of Canada's NPR, if you will. And so our show was a satire. We sort of played fun at the tone of of public radio, and for us as comedians, it was fun to be able to do any story that you would hear on public radio. It's such a wide expanse that it could be character, it could be documentary, it could be whatever, but it was all, made up, but it was sort of served up in a very dry, satirical way. And so in the latter years of doing that show, it ran for about 9 years. In the latter 4 or more years, we would do video companion pieces that, the audio was a satire of public radio. And so our video companion pieces were more a satire of things that we would find online, kind of genres and tropes that we would find online. So, speaking a little bit to the idea of the TED Talk version that Pat did, it was kind of speaking at thought leaders and some of those talks that are very easy to find online. Yeah.
Well, one of the things you guys do so well, let alone the comedic writing, which is always hard to nail, but is your ability to really grab the form, the trope, the thing that makes it sound legit. And then you just put enough of a spin on that if everyone's listening, with half an ear, they go, oh, wait, this isn't real?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of always been I think we've just kind of gravitated towards that as a device for comedy. I mean, if I think about going back to when Peter and I first met as young teenagers, like that was kind of what we bonded over, was this idea of observational stuff, like not so much in a stand-up comedic kind of way, but just observing the behaviors of people and finding the ridiculousness in things that people are doing, whether that's in real life or on media. And I think it then gravitated towards us just really refining that over the time to sort of hone in on, just doing as best we can an impression of types of media that we are kind of satirizing or parodying. And then
when you were talking about, starting out and when we first, what would sort of tickle our funny bone when we met, it was, as Pat's saying, satirizing or observational comedy a little bit. And one of the first things that we did, do you remember this? We were out in front of a comedy theater that we were going to go and do an improv show at. And we'd sort of gotten ourselves done up in some wigs and some bad hats. And we were in the parking lot just as kind of two buddies or brothers who were fighting over fixing a truck as the audience was coming in. And we were kind of, it was almost like a bit of a stunt, you know what I mean? But it was like, for us, it was just that ridiculousness of trying to nail a character or a relationship, so that as people are filing in, they're going, who are these two assholes who are just at each other's throats over trying to turn over this truck that's dead or whatever is going on. And then the payoff, of course, was then we came out as those characters to then do this improv show. So it was for us, it's always been that. Didn't mean to interrupt, Pat, but I always love that story, and for us, that is the early notion of trying to have characters or comedy or relationships or whatever that is that find some level of believability. That it's that then when you sort of put a slight twist on it, for us, we kind of prefer that to, the laugh tracked comedy or something that maybe at times might be a little bit more right out of the gates. Obviously a comedy. For us, it's always sort of been riding that line of like, can you believe that this person or that this relationship or this event is real? Yeah. And let's see how far we can push that.
And also a lot of the satire too can come from just literally it's just us finding, impressions of people in the real world and just echoing them back to an audience. And then you start to sort of see what the ridiculousness of people's behavior is. And I mean, we have that in droves now with the internet, it's like everybody is finding something to make fun of constantly. But really, like, that's truthfully, I think the home plate of our comedy is that.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, one of the things that I really loved when it first came out, and I did the same thing where I just sent links around, and I was then in a position to actually feature it, was Dexter Guff.
Oh, yeah.
Is Smarter Than You. And I played clips on my Succotash show. I reviewed it for This Week in Comedy Podcasts.
I love it. Has it changed your life? Did you follow Dex's steps to self-actualization? Did you realize
there are some of your thought dogs
serving up those thought dogs, trying to really change your life, maybe for the better. No promises there. Couldn't guarantee that. Could get sued, but going to change your life? Absolutely.
It's just, the character is just so, again, just this perfect character. He's not anyone we've ever heard before, and yet he's everyone we've heard that does that sort of what is it? It's sort of half sales, half
It's
it really did jump off from the thought leader video that you referenced before, there, Mark. Like, so that was kind of our initial foray into this idea of sort of making fun of this kind of what seemed to be everywhere trope of people being experts on things. But the character that I did wasn't quite the version that we were really fascinated by, which was kind of these, alpha male success wizards who somehow have this persona online, and with all the media that they do, they'd have you believe that they are the most successful people in the world. But really, when you start listening to what they have to say, there's just recycled nonsense with no substance to it. And so Peter immediately knew how to do this character, and we decided to sort of world build around that.
It was great. I loved how even though he goes off the deep end in the first season and disappears, and then you even turn it into a whole different type of show, the kind of Looking for Richard Simmons kind of show at the end. You managed to then resurrect him, and it was great.
Like so many stories of people who have horrific public falls from grace. There's a redemption story. There's always a redemption story. Dex is clawing his way back into the hearts and minds. I'm
gonna name drop, because one of my good friends and a friend of this show is Dana Carvey, and he's always said everyone loves a comeback.
Yep. Yes. Well, and the fun thing for us too was, sometimes I think there's some really legitimate folks that are really know what they're talking about and helping people change their lives and find some inspiration, the rest of it. And I also think that on the internet, that there's also a lot of folks that you really can't tell, what in the world they're pulling their, phrase, like where they're getting their sort of the building blocks to help people build a better life for themselves. And so in some level for us, it was kind of like, it's that guy where you don't really know anything about his past, except for that he keeps on trying to sell you a bill of goods that his life is unbelievable and that he's crushing it in every mean of like personal, business, everything. But what keeps on happening is that the real life of him keeps on, bursting into the show. So you've just got him trying to say that things are going amazing, but meanwhile, he's being sued because people are taking his, they're not taking his pills. Yes, exactly. His Guff pills, they're not meant to be taken orally. People got that confused and they're choking.
And there's a bit of a parallel to the men that we won't speak of, but the idea with Dex also too was just this like unwavering ability to never admit defeat, like that
Yes.
you're never wrong and that you will never fail. And so as much as sadness as we wanted to put into that truth, it's kind of a rule for Dex, is that he's never going to let you have the last word.
Yeah.
So, I visited your website this morning, and I realized you've got these other shows that I'm not even aware of. Some of them I am, some of them I'm not. I don't know if all of these are currently in production, like the Zeta Family.
Yeah, those are shows that we didn't necessarily write or create the material. It's more as just sort of like came on as directors and did and the post-production and sound design. Of course, with Chris, who's not joining us today, but Chris is obviously the wizard when it comes to the idea of creating sound design and world building and all that kind of stuff, which he does for This Sounds Serious.
Yeah.
And I think Pete and I would both say that for even This Is That as well. It's like the comedy was one thing, but really the guy who elevated most of it with the sound design was Chris.
Oh, okay.
And it was an amazing tool for us to be able to dream up these stupid ideas, and then all of a sudden somebody can actually execute them. It was a match made in heaven for sure.
Yeah. He really is. He's incredibly talented in a number of different ways. And one of the things when we were doing This Is That is that he had cut his teeth in some way in public radio with legitimately crafting, documentary style audio. And so, we were really able to kind of bring our ridiculous comedy sensibility to something and put it into a shell that's actually very it sounds absolutely perfectly legitimate. So he just really has that gift, and he's also hilarious too, but he's got the gift to be able to do that,
which is what's really elevated This Sounds Serious too. I mean, it's writing the stories for those seasons have been one thing, but then creating all the archival sounds that make it sound like an old 70s TV show or whatever it is. I mean, that's just all in the sound design.
Yeah. So let's get into This Sounds Serious, because again, now you guys are in your third season of this, and the first season was just such a great grabber with the ridiculous storyline of the twins and the murder, and again, the characters were fantastic, and all the tropes of Serial and every other serious podcast journalist. And I think you guys have helped to kind of launch the career of actual podcast journalists now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the whole premise of the show actually started with Peter kind of had the notion of, I think it was around the time we were doing a lot of live shows for This Is That. So we were touring quite a bit in Canada, and you're taking flights and you're in the car and you're driving, great distances to shows in Canada. And we were all just kind of listening to a lot of true crime.
Yeah.
Sort of like a lot of, it was good for flights and whatever. And it was Peter that sort of mentioned, wouldn't this be a fun backdrop to do some sort of comedic story?
Yeah.
And also at that time, because this is a few years back now, it really was, you think about S-Town and you think about Serial, and those two shows in the podcast space were really like such giant shows that I think now the true crime space is such a huge, vast category on podcasting. But at that time, it was not quite as much. Like those two shows were so big, and there were these amazing templates of like this, obviously it's very sensitive material. So the big question came out, well, what if we were to use that as just a genre and as a means for storytelling? The crime itself needs to be ridiculous, because if you're able to look at a ridiculous crime, like quote unquote crime, if you make it ridiculous enough, like in our minds, death by waterbed is one of them, that becomes a great premise to then jump forward and for us to basically lean on what we'd been doing for many years, which is just playing around with different types of media and different ways of storytelling and documentary and character and all of that,
And I think another sort of like happy accident that happened with it too was that our first initial instinct with that first season was to kind of just do this parade of impression of all the tropes, like we wanted to bust out every sort of thing in the arsenal to just do like basically a nonstop joke parade of the tropes. And then The Onion came out with one right as we were very fatal murder,
yes.
which was very much that, which was very much kind of, lots of jokes. It was really funny. And it was just literally going after, calling out everything that you hear in a true crime. And so we kind of put the pause on what we were doing and said, well, I think what will make ours different and perhaps a little more fulfilling to us is if we focus on writing a story. And that's, I can't say that that's something that we'd ever done before with our comedy, which is written like an 8-episode, fully formed narrative arc where there's a surprise and there's twists and we got to put in red herrings and all this kind of stuff. So it was a really like great challenge. And I think that that's in many ways kind of set us off on the right path with this series, which
it's great because you've got all these diversions from the story where it gets into the whole kind of water cult thing. And you've got all these, just these great, crazy characters. And then you hear like snippets of them throughout the show. You'll call back a piece they said or something. So you kind of keep these characters alive, even though they're not in the mix, further on from a sort of linear standpoint. And I think that adds to the sort of this depth and this world building that you guys are doing around something like this. And then now that you've gotten Gwen Radford has now, gotten into her third season, and she's avoided the trope of the character they used in Very Fatal Murder, where the guy is just really an attention hound. Right. The guy who's doing it, right? He's trying to win a Peabody, basically.
Yeah.
One of the most amazing things I would say about Gwen Radford, played by the totally amazing Carly Pope, who is just a phenomenal actor in every regard. But one of the things that she does so impeccably is that she sets up such a believable platform for she grounds the whole show, so that then when you have these ridiculous elements, when you're listening to her tone and the way that she storytells and the way that she sort of satirically plays that narrator in a journalist role, it's with such a genuine believability that it allows for everything else to be ridiculous. Like if something feels like it's way overboard, she's the one that is able to bring it back so that the listener can sort of go, oh, that was so ridiculous, but yes, I'm still in this very real sounding space. She does just such a great job at that. Yeah.
The perfect kind of ringmaster that you want for that. It's like if you think about even classic radio comedy where like a Jack Benny, and he's, surrounded by kind of crazy characters, and he's normal. I mean, he's not normal, but he's the normal one, right?
Yes.
And everything swirls around him.
And then we had a couple of instances throughout all the seasons, really, where maybe we've written or recorded something where Gwen is actually kind of being funny, quote unquote, and it just does not work. We take it out, and we knew like kind of right away. It's just like when you hear it, you're like, nope, she cannot apply any kind of like tone of humor to this. She needs to be.
She needs to really legitimately be, in it and not kind of commenting on it.
No winking.
Yeah, no wink towards it.
No, not winking, but occasionally she tries to be sort of funny.
Yes.
And it just falls as flat as you would expect it to.
Yes.
Not the humor.
Yes,
but
exactly.
But it's not the winking thing where she goes, I know this is a joke. She's playing the comedy as Gwen Radford.
Gwen would, exactly.
Which is great.
It's funny to think about that. I guess we've kind of have really touched on it, but one of the things with This Is That, to kind of go back there, is that one of the great successes of that program was that when we originally started, for us, it was like just having some fun with the tone of public radio. Like, when you're on on public radio, when it hits the dial, there's just a different tone. Yeah. And so for us, when we originally started, that was the idea for us to tell these funny stories, ridiculous interviews, crazy documentaries, but in that tone. And what we realized as soon as the show came out is that there were so many people that believed this was real. Like our our phone line, our voice answering, or our voice box would be full of people who believed these stories to be real. And in fact, they for years were taken and followed by other news organizations, Fox News, Washington Post. Like, I mean, literally, these stories that are ridiculous were taken but picked up as legitimate stories. But we didn't know at the beginning, we did not know that was going to be a part of what this show is. For us, it was like, let's just tell some really like ridiculous stories, but in that tone. And so what we began to do was this. It informed us to go, one of the measures is that people need to still believe this as true. And so that, I feel like if that wasn't the case out of the gates on This Is That, it might have become a different style of comedy show. It could have been something different, but having that always in the back of our mind, it really sort of informs all of it. You know what I mean? Even for something like Dexter Guff, there's a number of people that are right off the bat, first episode, are like, I'm not listening to this asshole. Who does he think he is? Like, they don't see the comedy of it. It's like they believe, And so that
belief is important. If you think of Phil Hendry.
Yeah, exactly.
And his characters. I mean, for years, he would just bald-facedly tell people these are not real people. And there were still listeners that would get so incensed.
Yes.
At these characters.
Yes.
And there's something about you need that weird core of belief. I could point to our current president, where there's a weird core of people that believe what's going on is real and true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and that's again something that you seem to have captured in most of the projects I'm familiar with. Are there things that you guys have done that sort of range away from that sort of spoof approach?
I think so, honestly, I mean, of course, in our own careers, there is like we have a variety of projects and things that we've been involved in.
Somebody's about to resume drop. Here we go.
Now let me tell you about a movie that I did. But I would say that, for us comedically, and it's not even something that's spoken about. Like, we never sort of said like, we do satire. What are we going to skewer next? It's just that what we personally sort of find funny is trying to take what could be something that's quite serious and recognizable and just twisting it a little bit. Like, we just find that ourselves, we find that funny. So I think we have done other projects, but whenever it's stuff that we're collaborating on together, we always our sensibilities seem to drift into that same world of, hey, did you see this? That was the most ridiculous thing. Could you imagine if we did it this way? No, it's sort of, that becomes, I don't know, like a leaping off point in a lot of ways for us, because we just still find that kind of comedically gratifying.
Yeah.
I think if anybody ever gave us a chance to write something that was not funny either, it would be probably the same approach, which is this idea of just doing characters that are really, really quite believable and identifiable. I mean, personally, that's, I think primarily Pete and I would probably both agree that our number one genre of things we like to watch is documentary.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And not so much because I'm
totally
engrossed in the story. I just love seeing real people do crazy things.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot more satisfying in some ways than dramatic films, or even like films that are supposed to be comedic or whatever. I mean, I'm just drawn to nonfiction.
Yeah.
And for that reason.
Yeah.
Just to kind of go back to your history a little bit. So you guys met when you were teenagers. Were you in school together?
No, we met at a improv theater in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, home of the '88 Olympics. Shout out there for anybody. But the theater's called Loose Moose Theater, and it was under the direction of a really notable improv guru, if you will, a fellow named Keith Johnstone.
Sure.
Keith wrote a book called Impro and was really one of the seminal voices for theater sports, where he was kind of like coming up with these, these games that you would see.
Yeah, I was in the Seattle theater sports group when it just of started to come down from Canada. We used to play the Vancouver team all the time. They would come down and play us.
Definitely. Oh, amazing. Yeah, Vancouver Theater Sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, so we started out there, and very shortly therein, I ended up going to school out in the East.
It's gonna school drop here,
and it's not a huge. You
can tell them, Peter. You can tell them.
The National Theatre School of Canada, and you can hear it in my diction. You really can, if I turn it on.
Peter's classically trained.
And it's if it's anywhere, if it's most obvious, it's in Dexter Guff. You just hear the T's. But we shortly after that, Pat also moved out east. We found ourselves in Toronto, and we kind of continued what we had started as a comedic partnership in Calgary, where we were kind of improvising together. And there in Toronto, we started, doing lots of improvisation. We worked with the Second City in Toronto. We on a harebrained, we had a dinner, and we had this harebrained idea years ago that we were like, you know what, why don't we go and rent a studio warehouse space and build a set, and we should do the world's a breakfast show for the world online. And so we did that. Long time back, we did a show called Good Morning World, and it's, again, we were kind of taking a run and having some fun at the notion of breakfast television.
It was very early days of the internet.
Yeah.
Like YouTube hadn't really even come out, and it was, so we thought there's this idea to be the first to do basically Good Morning America, but for the world on the internet.
The world.
And it was just bananas.
It was just
we committed to doing it daily, and which became a huge lift.
Yeah, I mean, and it really was at the very beginning. It was like neither one of us really knew anything about editing. It really was in this hot warehouse in Toronto in the summertime, us sitting behind like this strange desk and we'd built a set, and we had a camera that we had running on a remote control. We were in shorts down below, but like suit tops up above,
like I am right now.
Yeah, exactly. And we'd sort of like painted on some really bad tans, and we would do this breakfast show, and it was, literally us, just two guys sitting with tan faces in a warehouse, remote control, running a camera to do this daily breakfast show it was like 5-minute episodes, but with stupid tips and, health tips and all sorts of stuff.
That's amazing. What were your comedic influences growing up?
Well, I'll go first so that I can get them out of the way, and then Peter's will probably
I'll say the same ones.
Yeah. Well, a big one for sure was SCTV, all of it. And we actually had the pleasure, probably about 15 years ago to work with Dave Thomas from SCTV.
Oh,
so
cool.
He's become a friend, and it was just such a thrill to like hear from him the inner workings of that show and the stories behind the scenes, because obviously it had a huge impact on us. But I would say SCTV, and then Bill Murray for me, big one, and anything that was kind of just anything that I guess that informed it. Anything that was just sort of like parody of media, which SCTV obviously was, which is a huge one for me.
Yeah, I would say, obviously SCTV, same, and I really think was in a lot of ways the beginning of kind of anything. I just watched every one of those episodes over and over and over, and I just sort of thought everybody in that show is just so funny, and the characters and the ridiculous, just the stupidity of some of the stuff that was going on. I just thought it was so funny. And then another inspiration for sure for me was Peter Sellers. I just thought some of the stuff that Peter Sellers would do, I just thought was just some of the funniest stuff ever. I for certain.
Yeah. You guys have anything new that's coming out in terms of like another podcast or show you can talk about, or is everything kind of under wraps until we hear about it?
Well, this, I mean, the season 3 of the Sound series is out right now, and it's kind of follows a Hollywood sort of con man story. So it's a little bit less crime riddled than the other two.
Pat does a marvelous turn in it.
That's
a marvelous turn.
So I think, but it's rolling out right now, and it's a nice little COVID break. I think if people are looking for something.
I just featured a clip on this last episode of Succotash, but I never know who does any of the particular voice. I can recognize some people like Paul F. Tompkins and stuff.
Yeah.
But Pat, what part are you?
I'm playing Kirk Todd, the con man. So in the early episodes, he might not be too much.
Yeah, he's not in the earlier ones, so I haven't caught him yet. The clip I featured was the guy from the a cappella group.
Oh yeah, and now it's Peter. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So I played that whole fun of him.
Yeah. And they're
you're not going to play this on your podcast, are you?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And getting the that was kind of fun. There is a them sort of getting the bad gig, right, where they're being yeah.
Well, I mean, but the main thing for the time being, Mark, is like we're we've been kind of approached in a few different iterations of this sound series to sort of dreamalize what a TV version of it is. So we're actually, I think, pretty committed for the next little bit to kind of lock ourselves away and sort of figure out what a visual version of this sound series would feel like. And so we're kind of excited to dive into that.
That sounds really cool.
Sounds
great. I also noticed on your website that you've got a little bar at the bottom that says if you have an original idea you'd like to pitch, to get in touch. I don't know if you guys remember that's even on your website.
Oh, I didn't remember, but sure.
I don't want to have anybody inundate you with stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if people want to do that, they can visit kellyandkelly.ca.
Yeah, that's great.
Actually, also, to that end, there is another project that we crowdfunded really to get going called The Plop, which is a sketch comedy podcast for kids.
Oh, cool.
Because if you are a parent and you've been at home with your child now for about 6 months, maybe you're looking for some diversions. Give them something fun to do. So we're working on this podcast as well. And the reason I bring it up is because one of the things that we're really excited about and committed about is that it's creating jobs for all sorts of comedians who are in their house going, what in the world? My live shows aren't happening. What am I going to do? So it is an open call, an invite for people to submit ideas on that. So you can find out more information about that on the Kelly and Kelly site as well, but The Plop. And that's a way right away that if you're comedically inclined in any way, shape, or form, it's a great place to pitch an idea. Would love to collaborate.
Cool. Yeah, that's right. That's a very, very good point, Pete. Yeah. Reach out to Kelly and Kelly. I think it would be hello@kellykelly.ca.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I sent a pilot to, it may have been you, Pat, or it might have been Chris. I'm not sure, of a show I put together a couple of years ago that I was supposedly going to have somebody pay me to do a short season of, and then they sort of disappeared.
Oh, this is right. This was your...
This was the Sleeve Talkers.
The security. Yes.
Yeah, it was the overnight shift of the Secret Service at the White House, and it was like a sitcom.
That's right.
The gimmick was that all the communication was via their walkie-talkies.
Mm-hmm.
And so but I came up with it before COVID. So it was actually kind of really great for this because I record everybody on either their cell phones or Skype. And then my producer, who's a great sound atmosphere guy, put them all into different spaces around the White House, right? So one guy's out in the Rose Garden, another guy's in the underground submarine pen that we don't know about. And then whenever they would have interactions with somebody, they'd keep their channel open. So like there's the one guy who's assigned to Trump. And so he just keeps his channel open so you can hear his conversation with Trump.
Who did you have doing Trump?
Dana Carvey.
Oh, amazing.
Trump. He did Trump, Putin, and a cameo by Obama.
Oh my God.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So funny.
Just slightly good at doing impressions.
Yeah. He's done a few characters, hasn't he?
Yeah. So that was good.
Actually, he'd be up there too for my influences with that era of Saturday Night Live for sure.
Yeah.
It was him and Mike Myers and that kind of
Phil Hartman. You guys were talking about improv, and I've been doing improv since 1983, I think. Mm-hmm. And he would deny that he's an improviser, but I've been friends with him for a long time. I've gone to gigs, and he's an amazing improviser, but refuses to cop to it. It's
funny. There's a certain breed too of stand-up comedian that is like sort of Robin Williams-esque.
Yeah.
That can seem to just riff and go and do, but they never call themselves improvisers.
No.
It's a funny one because, you think like I imagine someone like Dana Carvey, who certainly because he's your pal, but when you can do a character that's that committed and that such a broad expanse of different characters that he's able to do, that once you get into a character like that, I'm sure that for him it's just second nature. That voice. And after, so he might not think that he's an improviser, but once he commits into a character like that, you could ask him any question and he just would reply true to that character, which is improv. That is what it is,
Yeah.
But without without the mask, you might sort of think about it a lot. But when you drop into a character in that way, it's just the voice just comes out of you, and you could probably riff forever.
Yeah, he would do a thing, and this is kind of diverting. I don't know if I'll keep this in, but just to tell you guys about it. For a while back in the early aughts, we were trying to put together danacarvey.com, and we recorded all of this stuff, and it never went anywhere. But one of the things he would do is this bit he came up with called the bunker, and he would hunker around a microphone at our sound guy's place, and the world was this hidden underground bunker under Las Vegas. And it housed both John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, Elvis Presley, and Adolf Hitler.
Oh, my God.
And he would just do all four of these voices in nonstop, back and forth. Gosh. And he didn't speak German, but he would just, because Hitler never learned English. He would never learn English. And he was and the only one who could understand him was Bobby Kennedy.
That's amazing.
And he would do 20 minutes.
My God, that's incredible.
Just going with this.
Going for it,
yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's just amazing.
Yeah,
anyway, guys, I don't want to hold you up, but this has been great. Really enjoyed talking to you. I love your stuff. And
thanks, Mark. And thanks again for the blurb too that you put out with Vulture.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I actually reached out to say thanks for that, but
absolutely.
I really, really appreciate it. And thanks for all the support.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mark. What a total pleasure, and really sincerely, I mean, you know a lot of our stuff, maybe more than we do. It's but it's such a really feel very flattered that you have responded to the material, because as you know, whenever you're doing anything creative, and especially in the world of things like when it's not a live performance, you never know if people are responding. I mean, of course you get emails or whatever, but it's always such a pleasure to meet someone that has responded to the material, because you know how much care you put into doing it, to making it,
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate what you guys do. I love your humor, and continued success.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Everything coming out of your factory there. Love it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Okay. Talk soon.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that chat. I sure did. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Peter. Don't forget to check out the new season of This Sounds Serious. You can follow the link up on our succotashshow.com home site blog, or get them pretty much anywhere quality soundcasts are streamed and or downloaded. I'll be back with our close right after this from our other sponsor, TrumpPoetry.com.
This episode of Succotash is sponsored in part by TrumpPoetry.com, a chronological ode to a fake muse. Enjoy a rhyming spin on the news of the day every day, as well as over 500 archived daily verses thoroughly covering the White House, America, and the world with a sticky caramel coating that's impossible to remove. That's TRUMPoetry.com. Everything you need to know in rhyming couplets. TrumpPoetry.com.
Now, if you have favorite comedy soundcasts and you would like us to interview the hosts on this show, we can track them down, but you got to let us know that you'd like to hear from them. So you can tweet us or Instagram us? I don't know. At Succotash Show. That's at Succotash Show. Or call our toll-full warm line at 818-921-7212 and just let us know. We'll figure out how to tag them, bag them, and drag them in front of the Succotash Shut-In microphones. All right, that's going to do it for me now. Remember that my compadre, Tyson Saner, will be back at this very feed starting this upcoming Tuesday with a brand new episode filled with fun. Or at least some more comedy soundcast clips. And you can supply your own damn fun. Until then, please remember to wash your hands, wear a mask. Yes, a mask, I'm talking to you. And please pass the Succotash.
You've been listening to Succotash Shut-In, the Soundcast Stimulus Package, with your host, Marc Hershon. Brought to you by Henderson's Pants, TrumPoetry.com, and imagine your company's name right here. Find us on the web at SuccotashShow.com, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on iHeartRadio, on YouTube, on SoundCloud, on the Laughable app, and tattooed on your mother's rear end. You can hear us streaming and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Succotash Show. Email us at marc@succotashshow.com. Or call into the Succotash Skype line at our toll call number 818-921-7212. You can also upload clips from your favorite comedy soundcasts directly to us using our direct upload link at hightail.com/u/succotash. Production of Succotash is overseen by Joe Paulino through the auspices of Studio P Sausalito, the home of the hit. Our hosts are Marc Hershon and Tyson Saner. Our musical director is Scott Carvey. Our booth assistant is still Kenny Durgis. And until next time, I'm your loyal booth announcer, Bill Haywatt, reminding you to please wash your hands and pass the Succotash. Goodbye. This has been a Succotash Patch production.